It's New Year's Eve. I'm Jamie East, and on today's episode, we're looking back at the biggest stories of November and December of 2024. On today's episode, Donald Trump wins back the US presidency, the Tories get a new leader, and things change dramatically in Damascus.
Grab a cup of something hot, put up your feet, and get up to speed on the 7 biggest stories of the week. This is the Standout 7 from the Smart 7.
It's news,
but not the news.
It was technically on the second last day of October when Rachel Reeves made history as the first female Chancellor to present a budget to Parliament.
It is the first budget in our country's history to be delivered by a woman. I am deeply proud to be Britain's first ever female Chancellor of the Exchequer.
The budget saw a whopping £40 billion worth of tax rises, with Reeves telling the BBC that this is not a budget we want to repeat. She targeted employers, capital gains tax, stamp duty and, as promised, VAT on private school fees. She also increased the duty on private jet hire, upped inheritance tax and signalled the end of so-called non-dom tax perks. That extra revenue was ploughed into the NHS and to plug the £22 billion hole in the public finances. The Office of Budgetary Responsibility said that budget won't add much in terms of growth and could even bump up inflation in the short term. Shadow Chancellor Jeremy Hunt, who announced he'll be stepping down, wasn't impressed by Reeves's first budget either, claiming that Labour broke their promise not to raise taxes.
It's the easy thing for any Chancellor to do, just to pick the pockets of businesses and to raise taxes. But the long-term damage to growth and competitiveness is profound. Now, if she'd wanted to do this, before the election, she should have said so.
On the positive side, the International Monetary Fund gave the budget the thumbs up, and both Prime Minister Keir Starmer and the Chancellor were keen to make clear that this budget is just the first step in repairing the UK's economy.
My ambition and my confidence in Britain burns brighter than ever. We have huge potential, and the budget yesterday starts to seize that, whilst at the same time putting our public finances, that were frankly in a mess when I became Chancellor, on a firmer footing.
November saw an unexpected plot twist in the United States as the American presidential election results started to roll in early on Wednesday, November the 6th. Convicted felon and former President Donald Trump performed strongly, beating his numbers in 2020 and looked set to win the popular vote in a huge blow for Democrats who'd had high hopes that Kamala Harris could win the White House. Republicans also won the Senate, flipping crucial seats in Ohio and West Virginia, while Ted Cruz retained his seat in Texas. Key swing states including Georgia, North Carolina and Pennsylvania all went to Trump too, which was enough to see him over the line. Republican commentator David Urban said Trump's message appealed to a broad range of voters.
Over half of America feels very strongly about the things that Donald Trump feels strongly about, right? A secure border, the economy, crime. It may not be a perfect messenger, but the message resonates.
Trump sounded positive and calm in his victory address.
So I want to thank the American people for the extraordinary honor of being elected your 47th president and your 45th president. And every citizen, I will fight for you. Every single day I will be fighting for you, and with every breath in my body.
Vice President Harris called him to concede the race, although counting still continued in several states. She spoke at Howard University in Washington to an emotional crowd of supporters.
While I concede this election, I do not concede the fight that fueled this campaign. I will never give up the fight for a future where Americans can pursue their dreams, ambitions, and aspirations.
The reaction to Trump's second term has been markedly different from the response to his first victory in 2016. This time there was a flurry of congratulations from big tech, including Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, and even Kamala Harris supporting Mark Cuban, while Prime Minister Keir Starmer also weighed in with good wishes.
Can I begin by congratulating President-elect Trump on his historic election victory. As the closest of allies, the UK and US will continue to work together to protect our shared values of freedom and democracy.
There was also a new leader in the UK in November, as former Business Secretary Kemi Badenoch became the Conservative Party's fifth leader in as many years. After Rishi Sunak announced his plan to resign as party leader back in July, it quickly became a two-way race to replace him between Kemi and former Immigration Secretary Robert Jenrick. But it was Kemi who came out victorious with 57% of the vote. Speaking after her victory was announced, Kemi said it's time for a new era in the party.
Our party is critical to the success of our country. But to be heard, we have to be honest. Honest about the fact that we made mistakes. Honest about the fact that we let standards slip. The time has come to tell the truth.
She quickly got to work introducing a full shadow cabinet, which she said is a team that's been picked based on meritocracy and drawing on talent across the Tory party. There were plenty of familiar faces, including leadership rivals Robert Jenrick, Mel Stride and Priti Patel. And the 6th of November saw Badenoch take to the dispatch box for the first time for PMQs. Keir Starmer welcomed her while pointing out she's the 4th Tory leader he's faced as the leader of the Labour Party. Kemi didn't go easy on her first day, and despite Chancellor Rachel Reeves' new promise not to raise taxes in the spring statement, Kemi had some topical thoughts about the first Labour budget.
The Chancellor's budget last week was a copy and paste of Bidenomics. It turns out that a high spending, high borrowing, high inflation approach is less popular than she may have thought. May I suggest he now urge her to change course, or is he determined to be a one-term leader?
Tuesday the 19th of November saw 1,000 days of Russia's war on Ukraine. Ukraine marked the occasion by launching 6 of its new long-range attack M missiles at a Russian military target just outside the city of Karachev. The decision by US President Biden to take the shackles off Ukraine's long-range capabilities caused serious sabre-rattling by Russia, with Vladimir Putin announcing a lowering of the threshold for a nuclear response to any conventional attacks on Russia. Ukrainian President Zelensky says for all the talk of peace talks, Putin hasn't changed his mind.
1,000 days, I think it's enough to understand that Putin doesn't want any peace. Even this day, this is the fact, not some such words or something like this, not rhetoric. I mean, even this day, they killed our civilians. Even especially this day, they presented nuclear weapons strategy. Why? They didn't present peace strategy.
PM Keir Starmer spoke at the G20 and accused Russia of using irresponsible rhetoric.
It's very important that we're steadfast in our support for Ukraine. Russia is the aggressor. Russia has to be the one that makes the move to stop this war. It's within their gift, but we must support Ukraine. It's impacting not just Ukraine, it's impacting the rest of the world, including the UK.
The week also saw Ukraine launch UK-supplied Storm Shadow missiles at targets in Russia for the first time. Russia's been irritated by the escalation and fired an Oreshnik ballistic missile at the Ukrainian city of Dnipro. The IRBM was described by Putin as an experimental model, and while that missile type is usually used for nuclear payloads, it was loaded with a non-nuclear hypersonic warhead. The deployment of the missile is highly unusual, so much so that Russia notified the US through nuclear risk reduction channels 30 minutes before the launch. Putin said it's a matter of symmetrical response to attacks on Russia.
On November 19th, 6 operational tactical ATAC-MS missiles made in the USA were used. And on November 21st, during a combined missile attack by British-made Storm Shadow systems and US-made HIMARS, strikes were carried out on military targets on the territory of the Russian Federation in the Bryansk and Kursk regions.
The use of the IRBM is seen as a potentially severe escalation, and Zelensky says it's more evidence that Putin has no interest in peace.
Today, our insane neighbour has once again revealed its true nature, its disdain for dignity, freedom, and human life itself. And, most of all, its fear. Fear so overwhelming that it unleashes missile after missile, scouring the globe for more weapons.
Still to come on the Standout 7 drama in Damascus, and Zoe Ball makes a big announcement. Right after this. Welcome back.
The beginning of December saw a dramatic change in Syria as rebel forces stormed Damascus and declared the country free from more than half a century of al-Assad family rule. Led by opposition group Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, the rebels were met with celebrations as they entered the capital on Sunday morning, following a stunning 2-week offensive which saw them capture several key cities on their way to Damascus. This was their announcement on Syrian state TV.
With God's help, the city of Damascus has been liberated and the tyrant Bashar al-Assad has fallen.
Bashar al-Assad, the country's former president, reportedly fled and sought asylum in Moscow. Meanwhile, Syrian PM Mohammed Ghazi al-Jalali said he's ready for a peaceful transfer of power.
This country can be a normal country, but we'll leave this matter to any new leadership that will be chosen by the Syrian people. And we're ready to cooperate with any new leadership and facilitate what they need so that various government departments can be transferred smoothly.
World leaders were quick to react to the news, including Joe Biden and Keir Starmer, welcoming the regime's collapse. But Israeli PM Benjamin Netanyahu was quick to take credit.
This is an historic day in the history of the Middle East. The Assad regime fell as a direct result of the blows we inflicted on Iran and Hezbollah, the main supporters of the Assad regime.
The story moved quickly, with former Syrian Prime Minister Mohammed Ghazi al-Jalali meeting with the head of the rebel forces HTS, Abu Mohammed al-Jalani. Despite initially suggesting he'd stay on, the PM handed over power to the rebel leaders, although he's been asked to help build a transitional government. Keir Starmer said it was a critical moment.
The situation is obviously very volatile in Syria. It is very good that Assad is gone, but it doesn't necessarily mean that what follows is settled by any means at all. It is really important we talk to our regional allies, our global allies, about the way forward, which has to be a political way forward.
Syrians were celebrating and the roads to Damascus were jammed with returning residents, while videos of prisoners being released from Assad's jail went viral. In the US, President Joe Biden said his administration's Middle East strategy, including US troops on the ground in Syria, is paying off.
For the first time ever, neither Russia nor Iran nor Hezbollah could defend this abhorrent regime in Syria. And this is a direct result of the blows that Ukraine, Israel, have delivered upon their own self-defense with unflagging support of the United States.
51 men were sentenced on Thursday the 19th of December for their part in the rape of Giselle Pellicot. The case, which shocked France and the world, revolved around Giselle's husband Dominique, who drugged her and then invited men to their house to rape her. He was sentenced to 20 years, while the other men, who were aged between 26 and 74, were largely sentenced to between 3 and 15 years. Her husband admitted to the rape and to not just drugging his wife, but also hiding cameras around his house and selling images of his adult daughter and the wives of his sons. Addressing the media outside the court, Giselle said she had waived anonymity to fight for victims who remain in the shadows.
I wanted, when I started on the 2nd of September, to ensure that society could actually see what was happening, and I never have regretted this decision. I have now faith in our capacity to collectively take hold of a future in which everybody, women and men, can live together in harmony, in respect and mutual understanding.
It seems like the end of every year is marked by the leaves falling, a touch of snow, and the radio schedules getting reshuffled. Radio 2 was first out of the blocks, with Zoe Ball stepping down from breakfast after a 6-year run. She'll be replaced by Scott Mills, who made the jump from Radio 1 to replace Steve Wright 2 years ago and now takes over the early morning slot. There was a bit of history too in the reshuffle, as Trevor Nelson became the first black presenter on Radio 2 daytime. And then on Friday the 20th of December, Zoe bid farewell. And it was a message from her son Woody, who got the tears rolling.
Hey Mum, you've done such an amazing job on The Breakfast Show, and I just want to say thank you for making everyone's mornings a bit more magic. And here's to a healthier sleeping schedule. Love, Woody.
And this is for everyone who's listened, and this whole team in the room, and my kids, of course. Do I love you? Indeed I do. It's Frank Wilson. Yeah, I'll get you. Ora, yeah. Ora.
You've been listening to The Smart 7. We'll be back tomorrow at 7 a.m. Hit that follow button and have a great day. Give us 7 minutes, we'll give you the world.